Well, it's great to have you back for another conversation on the Dream Lifestyle Podcast, where we are obsessed with helping you become the leader your dream life requires. And today's conversation, I have a new friend with me, Dr. Desiree Rodriguez. And the cool thing about it is I know she has a lot of value that she's going to be adding to you as well as to me. And so we're in for a treat. Let me tell you a little bit about her because, again, she is not only qualified, but she is tried and true. And so Dr. Desiree, she has a doctorate in strategic communication. All right. She's the founder and CEO of Literature Matters, which is an organization that bridges the gap in diverse children's literacy. So she has book distribution. She collaborates with schools and other organizations, all so that children have access to books. She's truly purpose driven. She's a former Miss Southeast. She was a published author at 17. We're going to hear a little bit more about how that came to be. And currently, as it stands, she has 4 books. So she's a real author. And the best title, the most important title that she holds, or I should say 2 titles, is that she is a wife and that she is a mother and she's living her dream lifestyle. And so today we're going to be having a conversation about how to start, build, and believe anyway. And so with that being said, Dr. Desiree, how are you doing? It's great to have you on the podcast.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here and just talk about purpose, talk about our dreams and how we get there. So I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely. No, I'm grateful that you said yes. And so one of the things that we do here before we really dive into the topic, I always ask any dreamer, any builder, just when did you start building your dream lifestyle? Because you got a long resume. So where did like the start? What was like the origin story for you?
Yeah, so really young. I would have to say I was about 22, 23. And I believe at that age, you really don't have an idea of what you want. And some folks do, but for me, I didn't. And at the time, I was a instructional assistant, special education specifically. I was working in a Title I district, which means that those kiddos are economically disadvantaged. Perhaps they don't have resources, money, parents. I mean, all the things. And at that moment, I was seeing young girls that didn't have resources. And so I thought, you know what? How about I do something about that? And so that's where Always a Lady first was birthed. And I began to have etiquette and workshops where I would meet after school for about an hour, teaching girls how to walk in heels, having confidence workshop, etiquette workshops, talking about nutrition and just giving them a safe space to have conversations and be seen. And so that's really ultimately where me becoming an entrepreneur and starting to build this lifestyle now where I know, you know what? I want to be my own boss. I want to have my own businesses and help others in the process.
I like that. And what I really want to pull out for everyone listening is just how others focused you were. Like I think that is like the substratum and the key to anybody who wants to lead yourself well is that, the focus, of course, is building a business, right? But understand that that's just a vehicle, right? We all have to be others focused, where you saw a need in others and you just basically ask the question of what can I do to meet that need? What can I do to solve this issue and problem? And I really appreciate that. So talk with me a little bit about, just you being published at 17, because that still just is incredible to me because, most kids at 17, they're not thinking, oh, let me write a book. So talk
Right.
with me about that.
Yeah. So I honestly, I started writing at a very young age, even before 17. I started writing in the second grade, and my first work of art was called Pink Is. And at the time, my dad was in the military, and it was published in the Nebraskan Journal, and it was poetry. And so throughout elementary school, middle school, and high school, right, you go through those different waves of life, friendships, emotions. And one of the best ways, other than sports, to really express myself was through poetry. And so I gathered all of my poems and I leaned on my peers, my teachers, to help me edit the book. And it was funny because my father, he had a colleague who had just published a poetry book. And as you stated, like it's crazy, but I thought to myself, I could do that. I mean, and I had my first job at 17, so I saved all my money and I did it. I reached out to the same publishing company that his colleague had her book published, and I thought, you know what, let me reach out and see how much it costs. I can save my money. And I had my peers help me edit, and before you knew it, I had a book literally a month before I graduated high school. And
Wow.
so I just always encourage folks, if there's something that you want to do, map out that plan and just go for it. And so at 17, I didn't know uh, how I wanted to go about it or that I would actually do it. But then once I got my mind to it, I just did it. And I'm so grateful that I just took that leap of faith and
That's
did it.
really good. And so one of the things that I'm wondering about just that entire process is the fact that, okay, you're a 17-year-old, you're
Right.
asking classmates and teachers to edit your book. I can imagine that not everybody was supportive, and not even necessarily supportive in the sense of like they were against you necessarily,
Right.
but I'm
Right.
certain that there was a level of like confusion. And so, of course, to the builder, to the dreamer, anybody who's not on board and like saying yes with like fist in the air, ready to build with us, we're immediately like, oh my God, you're against me. You're the enemy. So talk with me
Mhm.
about like that dynamic, because again, you're attempting at doing something that most people would say is very uncommon for a 17-year-old. So what was that dynamic like when you think about just like the relationships with people as you're writing a book at 17?
Yeah. I asked some of my classmates in class. I mean, I was in AP English 11, AP English 10. So a lot of those students, they were hard workers too. They worked hard and were kind. I leaned on folks that didn't have a problem with helping me out. And one teacher in particular, shout out to Mrs. Hostutler. She was my AP English 11th grade teacher, and she helped. She did a lot of it actually. And to think that she was teaching AP English 11 and all the other classes and that she was still, you know, carving out time to help me. But honestly, it was just reaching out to some of the students that were there and that didn't mind helping, that were positive. And honestly, I guess because it's so long ago, I don't even remember if there were folks that were negative. But in my mind, even if you were negative, this book was getting published. So
Yeah. I want to dig into that last bit a little bit more, because like what helped you keep showing up to write the book even at 17? Because I'm certain that there were things that you were still like, oh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. Like, how did you keep showing up?
I guess in that time, I knew I had a mission, and that mission was to be published. And I also remember mentioning to my dad that, "Hey, I'm going to publish a book." And "Oh, okay, yeah, that's great." And I think that was everyone's expression, like, "Oh, okay, that's great." But I wanted to see the expression on my parents' face when it came in the mail and I opened it and I handed them the book and my name was written at the bottom. And my dad sat there in the chair in the kitchen and read it from start to finish. You
Wow.
know, I can't express, I don't even know the emotion I felt in that moment, but it just felt, I guess, the moment of accomplishment, when you feel like you've done something. It's kind of like when you're playing in a band. And at the time I used to play the clarinet, and I remember the feeling of when you're playing in a band or an orchestra and then you all play like one. It feels like that moment of accomplishment and calm. And I guess in the moment that's how I felt.
That's really good. And so even in your answer, I'm hearing a self-determination,
Yeah.
so hearing visualization as well. So
Mhm.
like it wasn't just a thing of, because I totally understand that response, right? You tell your parents, "Oh, I'm writing a book." "Oh, okay, that's nice, that's
Okay.
cool,"
Yeah.
right? But you, it sounds like you visualized, to your point, the actual experience of, okay, opening up the box, handing them the book, seeing your name there, and putting it in their hands. And I think that's really powerful. And I'm only synthesizing that because I feel like those are very practical things that
Yeah.
our audience can take with whatever it is that they're trying to build, where you have people who are responding with, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's nice. All right, you're building a business, that's cool. All right, oh, okay, it's nice you're trying to go climb up the corporate ladder. Oh, that's nice you're stepping into ministry," whatever it is, right? um
Right.
talk with me a little bit about just like, and if you have to fast forward in this, because we're talking about how to start, build, and believe anyway, and oftentimes one of our biggest obstacles to that is ourselves, but also another layer of that is just like people and their perceptions and their opinions about what we're building. Can you talk about just your experience, just overall? We can zoom out now, even from just the first book, because I know you've accomplished way more than that. But talk with me just about your experience with like dealing with people and their opinions and their thoughts just towards what you've been called to do.
I would say not necessarily just their opinions. I would say the lack of support. that's what I struggled most with on this journey, and I would reach out to other like-minded women or other like-minded businesses, and then you wouldn't get that call back or you wouldn't get that email. And so in that moment of self-determination and manifesting your ideas and your goals, you kind of have to sit in it. Like, am I going to just stop because Felicia or Ray Ray or whoever isn't getting back to me or isn't responding? Or am I going to make those ideas come true? And so oftentimes when you have those times when it's trying to hold you back or those moments of maybe even self-doubt, you have to really think of, what do I want out of this? And is this something that I really want to do? And so for me, when those times do happen, because they still happen today, I have to remind myself that I have an idea, I have a vision, and I have to see it through. And even if it didn't work, at least I saw it through. And for me, that's the feeling of accomplishment and fulfillment.
Talk to me more about that distinction. Like, because you said seeing it through is not the same as the idea working. Talk with me a little bit about that, because I think that's important.
So in the beginning, you are kind of using your imagination. You're trying to visualize this thing in your mind. And then when you see it through, you kind of have the chance to sit back and watch those steps in your mind play out. And I think when you do that, that's when you get to kind of have love in that moment for yourself of determination and love in the moment of, okay, I did that. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs or bosses, we just go, go, go. And we don't get to sit down and just see it through, see the vision through, and take that time to reflect, and I think reflection is very, very important.
Absolutely. So
That
you,
is
you you mentioned earlier that it seemed like the lack of support from people was one of the biggest challenges when you
yes.
wanted to go from idea to actualization. Talk with me a little bit about just how you've overcome that, like, or how you overcome it, because again, you're never going to stop running into feeling like people aren't supporting you, right? Where people aren't
Right.
responding and they said they would, or whatever the case is. Like, how do you mentally categorize? What was the mental shift for you in handling that?
Finding more opportunities, networking, and figuring out other pivots, other ways that I can reach others to accomplish my goals. So whether that be, like I said, going to a networking event, whether that is looking up other organizations or going on other organizations that are similar to mine, scrolling down their website and seeing who are investing in these organizations, who's the president of that organization, or is there another coordinator that I know that does something similar to this person? I think having time or just taking the time to figure out other ways to accomplish the goal without having that self-doubt and rejection, right? Because ultimately you're getting rejected habitually. And so it's important to, or what has worked for me is finding alternative ways that can help support my mission, my ideas, and then manifest them through that.
That's really good. And what I love about that is the word is innovation.
Mm.
Like even when you experience the rejection, it's a conscious decision to not stay in the rejection, but to
Right.
just think, okay, how can I innovate? How can I, the classic analogy is, okay, if the door is closed, then I'm gonna find a window. If the window's closed, then I'm gonna find a way to get through the basement. Like, I'm gonna find a way to get into the roof, like some way to
Exactly.
perform where it's like, I'm gonna do something. And I think, why this is so important for every single person listening is because, it doesn't matter what your idea is, because we get ideas in a bunch of different spaces and a bunch of different areas in our lives. There's going to be some sort of obstacle, and we have to have a willingness to be innovative, a willingness to find another way and simply be creative, to see it through. I'd love to hear from you just concerning this idea. And I've heard you talk about this on other platforms, just like this tension between taking your idea to it actually coming to fruition, but then also like discovering who you are in that process to make that transition. Talk with me a little bit about your process in finding who you are and just how that's related to your ability to execute on your ideas. I'm sorry to interrupt the conversation, but I wanted to take a moment to let you know and personally invite you to this year's Dreamer Symposium. On December 5th and 6th, we're hosting a leadership conference for you to create vision for the new year and grow in your self-leadership. So whether you're looking to climb the corporate ladder, whether you're building a business, or you're growing a ministry, it is important that in order for you to succeed, that you have vision and you lead yourself well, which is why this year's theme is resilient leadership, because it's not about what's happening to you, but it's about what you can make happen in your world. And you need to know that you are built to overcome. And in these 2 days, you're going to learn how, because resilience will be necessary. Because for you to build the life that you dream of, you're going to need to overcome some things. And so I would look forward to seeing you there on December 5th and 6th in Jackson, New Jersey for the Dreamer Symposium. Now let's get back to the episode.
I believe that comes from when I went to college, going to Norfolk State University, which is an HBCU, which is, for your listeners, it's a historically Black college university. And at the time, I had put in for a couple other universities and I was rejected. And so God was pushing me towards Norfolk State. And I didn't know why at the time until I got there. And I learned a lot about myself as an Afro Latina. So a lot of my family is from the Dominican Republic. And so going to an all Black college university was an aha pivoting moment, because I had been to other schools that was multicultural or mixed or PWI, but at this particular moment in my life, I had to adapt again. And I know that sounds strange, but if you're in other environments where you're not exposed to a predominantly Black classroom or university, it's just different, just as much as you if you were put in a different situation or a different school. And so I learned a lot about myself going there. I learned a lot about my culture, about the way I looked and not feeling like, okay, I don't really fit in with the Black crowd. I don't really fit in with the Latina crowd because I don't speak fluent Spanish. I may understand it depending on the dialect, but where do I fit in? And so in that moment of self-discovery, I had to believe in myself and try to figure out, okay, well, if I don't fit in here, I don't fit in there. Well, who am I? And so in those moments, in my sorority, we were putting on events and I was learning how to be dedicated and to have discipline. I learned that, and joining other organizations. And amongst all of the trials and tribulations, I really had to kind of dig deep and discover who I am. And I think from that experience and having a background in sports, it enabled me to learn perseverance. It enabled me to learn about self identity and loving who I am. And even though I may not be able to fit in this and that, I'm able to love myself regardless. And so I believe it stemmed from that.
That's really
Oh,
good. Can you share with us just something that you discovered about yourself that might have surprised you, or just more importantly, something that you discovered about yourself that helped you be in a place of confidence of, okay, I don't fit in with you guys, I don't fit in with you guys, but you know what? I'm comfortable being here. What was something that you discovered about yourself that really allowed you to be in that space?
I discovered about myself, especially going to Norfolk State, was I can do anything I put my mind to. And I know that's cliche to say, but I joined my sorority step team. I had never stepped before, but for some reason, taking the time to learn how to do the steps and running, whatever the case may be, I learned how to step confidently in front of hundreds of crowds. And I thought to myself, well, if I can do that, I can put myself out there for anything. And despite, modeling at, I think I started modeling at 15, it was just different. Like stepping and shouting and being a performer is just so different. And putting yourself out there to that capacity, it was nerve-wracking. And I remember on my last homecoming step show, I actually made a mistake because it was just three of us and hundreds of people. It was probably even thousands. And I made a mistake in the step, but I kept going. Kind of like where they say if you're a performer and you're singing and you mess up, you keep going. And from that moment, messing up, I cried about it afterwards, right? Like I was devastated. I cried like, oh my God, I messed up, and we probably aren't gonna win because I messed up. But just being able to make that mistake and mess up and just to keep going and believing in myself. And so I think it stems from that for sure.
That's really good. And you said something in there. You said put it out there.
Mhm.
Like that's relevant to this conversation because, the ideas that we have, the ideas that I believe God gives us are not meant to just stay with us. Kind
I
of full
agree.
circle when you think about just how, being others focused and right. We want to build things that make an impact for other people. And so that's going to require us as the receiver of the idea to get the idea personally, do
Mhm.
whatever self-discovery, do whatever reconciliation with the idea we need in ourselves. But ultimately, we have to take that bold step in putting the idea out there, right? Whether it's posting the content, whether it's, coming out with the book, like whatever it is, right? We actually have to take the
Right.
step, put it out there. And so I'm hearing that your experience with the STEP team is kind of helped you in that process. And I know it sounds funny because it's like, wait, how does the STEP team help with but like I think it's really practical because to your point, you learned how to say, okay, this is where I am, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do, and I'm just gonna put it out there. And so talk with me about just that concept for you and like how that has applied to your current life and standing now with what you're doing with Literature Matters and what you're doing in business and everything like that. Like that concept of idea, execution, put it out there. Like, talk with me about that.
When you put out your idea, it puts you at a vulnerable state, right? And a lot of people don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want the idea of people judging them. But you'll never know. You'll never know how it will turn out, if it'll be successful, if it won't. But regardless of whether it's successful or it's not successful, in the process, you learn and you kind of get your answer too. Like, oh, if it's really successful, great, I know it works. Or if it's not, okay, well, maybe I need to pivot or try something new. And I think that that's that nuance, right? That space of the ability to find out what's going to happen, I think is a beautiful thing because then you know what to do. And I know it's very logical because I'm a very logical person, but ultimately, once you put it out there, you get your answer. It's kind of like dating, right? Like once you start dating Ray Ray and he's not really respond, okay, that it doesn't work. Okay, now I have my answer. So I think the same thing is like ideas. Once you put it out there, it's successful or it's not successful, or maybe it's kind of successful and it needs some grooming and it needs some work. And that's okay too. And I think sometimes if you allow yourself to be vulnerable and to put it out there, then you know what to do next. You're
That's
not
really
wasting.
good. So for the person who's listening right now, they've been sitting on an idea, right?
Mhm.
And they're running into that obstacle that is the vulnerability that's required to put it out there. How do they develop the courage to overcome that vulnerability? Like how does a person go from I'm afraid to put it out there because what people are going to think to
Right.
hey, you know what, I'm going to put it out there because I want to get the information.
I think letting go of the idea of what others think. And sometimes it might take doing a little bit of self work, whether that is going to the gym, talking to a therapist or a pastor, whether that is writing down your thoughts. Sometimes letting go of those inner things that are maybe holding you back, doing those small steps in the process to help let go of those feelings of feeling so scared, I think will enable you to just put it out there, and oftentimes people aren't taking the time to do those self reflections and self work. But I think if you do it, then it's like, okay, now I'm prepared. Now I'm ready because I believe in myself. I love myself. I have done self work. And now I'm okay and I'm ready to do it. And it doesn't matter what others think. Because we're all human. Some capacity you have, you'll care a little bit.
Right. Right.
But you don't want it to be to the point where it hinders you from doing the things that are in your head and in your heart where you could be helping others, because ultimately that's what matters.
That's true. And what I appreciate that it it put me down like this memory lane of even when I was starting this podcast, and just like basically I was making a transition from, basketball player to now I'm just like I'm helping people, and like I still wasn't even sure if I was coaching or what. I didn't know the industry like that. But I remember when I first started posting videos, what was going through my brain was, oh my gosh, like people are just going to see me just all of a sudden being motivational or something like that, and what are they going to think about that? Oh my god, they're going to judge me. They're going to think it's like some cliche, and all these thoughts were like going in my head. But I think one of the thoughts that really helped me um, just be okay with putting it out there with the ideas I had and what, God had given me was just this thought process of, you know what, I'm here to help the one. Like 1,000 people could think negatively about this idea, this clip, this video, whatever the heck it is, right? But if it just helps one person, like if it helps one person, at least in my space, when it comes to just the way they lead themselves, right? Whether it's overcome a mental block, whether it's build a discipline, whatever, then you know what? It was worth it. And so
Yeah.
like just kind of like for me, it was like reframing that, you know what, like if whatever it is that I'm doing, if this idea can help at least one person overcome, then you know what? It's worth the criticism, it's worth the lack of support, it's worth the disappointments that are going to happen along the way, right? As we are
Right.
forming it. Talk with me about just your experience with the disappointments, because to your point, right? Like not every idea that you put out there works. Not every idea is a good idea, right? So like, how does somebody even reconcile? How does somebody mourn? How does somebody grieve and move forward after like a disappointment when after the idea is put out?
Yeah, how do you grieve if and let me make sure I understand the question correctly. How do you grieve after the idea didn't go the way you anticipated it to go?
Yes.
I would say evaluating, what didn't go right, and then also not to harp on too long what didn't go right, but maybe there were some positive things too, which is hard to kind of juggle in the moment when you feel your idea didn't do what you wanted it to do. You want to kind of, oh my gosh, I'll never do it again. And sometimes you can sit in that negativity state, but it's so important to reflect on the positive too. And to your point, that one person, and I learned that from when I had started Always the Lady First. I learned that oftentimes you may not reach 1,000 or 100 people when you're starting out, or just in general, right? Not every time you may not get that subjective success, because success to me is subjective. But if your goal was to reach, right? If you reached one person, that's success. And I think sometimes we harp so much on the numbers, kind of like with social media, right? Oh, there were only 10 people that liked my post. Well, if those 10 people were standing in front of you, that's a lot of people, And so I think taking the time to think on the positive, not harp too long on the negative, but process it, reflect it. How can I do it different? I think makes the difference.
That is really, really good. And I agree. And I think even within that, right? Like before you put it out, like kind of already have your KPIs, right? Like already knowing, okay, when I put this out here, here's what the success I'm looking for, right? And we can even interchange success for here's the impact I'm looking for, right?
Right.
On this post, on this offer, on this whatever. And then to your point, right? Evaluating it. And I think oftentimes it's difficult for us to take an objective view at what we're putting out there because it's our idea. So
Mhm.
I think in a lot of ways, we almost play in like these extremes when it comes to our ideas, where it's like if the idea was successful and it hit the numbers, right? It hit the goals, we like kind of inflate it as if like, oh my gosh, this is like the thing, like I'm out of here, right? We've done it. And it's like, yeah, you did well, but like it wasn't that good. Like, wait a minute, like you reached 100 people, like you didn't reach like a million. Like, wait a minute, like there's still some tweaking to do, right? But then even on the opposite side of that, it's like, okay, yeah, to your point, right? They get disappointed. Oh, I only reached 10 people, and like, oh man, this idea wasn't good in the first place. And I just shouldn't have even tried this in the first. And it's like, wait a minute, how do we get to that extreme? You put 10 people in this room, like
Right.
that's a decent number of impact that you can do. And so
Yeah.
how does somebody objectively evaluate their ideas?
Objectively, I would say, compare and contrast. Like, let's say your idea is similar to someone else, look at their success rate and perhaps challenges. And looking at theirs can give you an objective view because you probably don't know them, you know, it, depending on what it is, right? But I would say looking at someone else who's doing your idea or a similar idea, looking at research, uh, that will give you a more objective uh, perspective
That's
versus
good.
going to your friend or going to your uncle, going to your mom. That's going to be more subjective because they know you. But going and looking at other folks that don't or other organizations that you wouldn't know that person, that could give you a more objective for sure.
I like that. So I'm hearing just do research on the
Yeah,
market. I'm hearing familiarize yourself with
yeah,
trends and everything like that.
absolutely.
So I think one of the things that I appreciate, even just about that answer, and I think this is like an athlete thing, like
Mhm.
I really do believe, because I do believe there is like healthy comparison. Like
Yeah,
I genuinely believe in like healthy comparison and
yeah,
healthy competition to where it's like as an athlete, we can compete and go at it and like you are nothing to me when we're in between the four lines using like a basketball reference, right? You are nothing to me on this track, right?
says the basketball star.
Well, yeah, like right, like mentally, like when you're in it, like it's like no,
Yep,
like, I'm better than you, right? But then
right,
it's also like the when we're on the sidelines and the game's over and we're all about to go home. It's like man, that move, I gotta get that. That was good, right? And it's even
right.
like there's just a level of respect where it's like okay, I can acknowledge and honor somebody's talents, gifts, right? What's working for them, but also at the same time, that doesn't mean I have to like diminish what I'm doing,
No,
but which allows me to then kind of glean and see like, okay, like maybe I could take a little bit of that, maybe I can take a little bit of that, and that's where you're able to ask questions, and that's where I think for people who have not been in athletics, I think it's harder for them because they can easily fall into like comparison. Right, where they're like, "Oh man, like they have all these followers and they have all this stuff and they're making all this money," and it's like for an athlete, it's kind of just like, "Oh, like okay, like I'm on my way there, but like they're just doing these couple things. Let me take it from that. Um,
right.
did you have anybody like that? Like so you talked about doing the research, you talked about kind of seeing what's going on in your industry. Who are like some of your I call them success models. I call them success models because again, the dream that all of us have in our hearts, it's not like it's already being done. Like whatever dream that any one of us have, like you want to be a wife, there are plenty of wives out here. You want to be a business owner that's successful making millions, there's plenty of business owners making millions. Like if you want to, I don't know, like whatever the dream is, right? Whatever the idea is, it likely already exists in some shape, form, capacity.
No, that's true.
So who were like some people um just along your journey that have modeled the success that you're looking for?
I would say along the journey at a distance.
Hmm.
I would say no one specifically in my circle. I would say our ideas are similar. There's one celebrity in particular that I feel has a lot of the steps that she's taken. I'm like, man, I can do that. And then she comes out with something else. Man, I can do that. And she just does it really well. And so I would love to tell you who that is.
You can say it. It's fine.
Um, the one celebrity that I feel like is really just hitting that bar to me personally, and you might laugh, but Aisha Curry. Like I feel like some people don't know if you don't follow her, you may not see all the things that she's doing behind the scenes other than being a NBA wife, right?
Right.
Uh, but she has a nonprofit that her and her husband share. She has a wine company. She has uh different restaurants, and then she has this huge umbrella company is what I call it, which is Sweet July, where she has a magazine that showcases recipes and showcases her storefront that has home essentials. I mean, the ideas that she comes up with is genius, in the way that it's under that umbrella and the way she's able to expand and do different things. And most recently, because I'm an author, she just recently launched or partnered with an author that has to do a little bit with the Jamaican roots because her family's from Jamaica. And then she launched the Sweet July skincare that has to do with different fruits from Jamaica. And I'm like, man, I see it, because I see all my things with being a Dominicana, you know what I mean? And I see all the things that I can do with the Dominican fruits and stuff. And it's just a lot of her ideas align with my ideas. And so when I'm thinking about my circle, not necessarily, but when I look, arm or mile length, I would say Aisha Curry, a lot of the things that she's doing, I love to do myself, which
That's
is
really
cooking,
good.
which is family, which is natural things and organics, uh, all the things. And so inspiring to me. And yeah, I have some ideas up my sleeve that I can't wait to start stepping into.
No, I look forward to hearing about it. And the only reason why I asked that question is because, again, we're talking about going from idea to impact. We're talking about basically taking an idea,
Right.
executing, putting it out there for the purpose of making a difference. And so, I think these very practical steps that you shared in this conversation are helpful, but then also just modeling the fact that you need someone that kind of keeps you, that's kind of like a lighthouse for you.
Yeah.
So again, it's
Yeah.
not like we're not saying that like, okay, you need to be buddies with Aisha Curry, which would be great. I
No.
hope that door
Right.
opens for you, right? But like, it's just saying like, no, like that's kind of like my North Star. Like this makes sense
Yes.
based on, just kind of my interests and everything. Like it's almost like it's like a selfish reverence, maybe we could call it. Like I'm seeing how you're doing it and I respect it and it's in line with my virtues, my values, and it's kind of like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
And again, it just kind of keeps you encouraged because again, if you don't have an environment that is curated in a way that keeps you encouraged,
Yeah.
then it can be very difficult. Whereas you might be feeling down on your idea, but then you'll see like Aisha Curry post something or you whatever, right? Whatever is the
Right.
new thing that she's doing. It's kind of like, you know what? No, like I can take another step today. I can do something, right? Like one of the things that I do with my success models is I always think about whenever I'm in a moment of like uncertainty or like I'm feeling down or whatever, I'm like, you know what would they do? Like if they were in this moment, like what would they do? And
Right.
I just do that. Like I like and that and again, really easy mental shift, mental exercise, whatever you want to call it. But it's like, okay, no, like I can do something to move this forward. Kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's like, hey, I can do something. And I believe having a success model helps. So listen, Dr. Desiree, I appreciate this conversation so much because, we have a community of leaders, builders, dreamers who they have a dream in their heart. They know whether they're called to business, they're called to ministry, whatever it is, they want to put their hands on something for the purpose of others. And it's going to require that they honor this process of going from idea to execution to ultimately seeing it come to fruition. And so I really appreciate just all that you shared today. Can you just share just like a word of encouragement? Let's say there's somebody right now who, their idea is great, but they've just been getting rejected left and right. They've experienced nothing but disappointment. Like, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I know what that feels like. Uh, I would just say you are your best cheerleader. And you know that if you just try and that's good enough for you, that's okay. Or if you say, hey, I need to go further and beyond just trying, I need to see it through. That's okay too. I think everyone's at different phases of their lives and their ideas. Own that, own where you are, and know that even though in this season, it may not be your season, next season might be. And I think that that is sometimes all you need next season. And even I myself have to remind myself that, okay, this is not Desiree season, but there's always next season. And I think just believing in yourself, you can do anything, just about anything you put your mind to, you are fully capable of. And I am such an advocate for that because you are your biggest cheerleader. So those are some of the words that I would say.
I love it. I love it. Now, how can people connect with you? How can they just get in touch with you? Just let us know, shout yourself out, brag on yourself. Just
Yeah.
how can people get in touch with you? They want to work with you. They want to connect with you.
Yeah, so I have a couple platforms, and first and foremost is my website. So that's www.desiree.com. And then I have a few Instagrams. So my lifestyle, some of the things that I talked about today. So with the cooking, working out, I do a lot of gardening. That is my Instagram, which is Desiree Rodriguez. I also have a motivational speaking Instagram, which is Desiree Speaks. And then last but not least, my nonprofit organization, which is Literature Matters. And that Instagram is Desiree, the letter LM. So thank you so much. And I look forward to many more conversations.
Absolutely. Now, listen, you also have a PDF that you want to
Oh,
share with
yes.
people. So can you let them know about just that PDF and that resource?
Yeah. Yeah, so that digital resource. So if you subscribe to my website, so by the time that this podcast comes out, I will have my uh, kind of like an ebook, PDF. So just some quick tips. We talked a lot about ideas today, and so I wanted your listeners to go home with a ideas framework. And so if you subscribe to my website, you'll be going home with my steps to have your ideas framework. So to manifest those ideas. So
I
I'm really
love it.
excited.
I love it. So listen, if you're listening to this, go to jdesiree.com so that way you can get your hands on that free resource. You can get the idea framework. Listen, I appreciate you guys for taking the time to grow and get better, because your life will change when you grow, because also your dream is possible when you're willing to grow for it. I appreciate you. And all I'm going to ask you to do with this conversation is share this with one person that you know, love, and trust. One person that you know has a dream. One person that you know it requires. They need to grow. And so I appreciate you. Share this with someone you know. And I will see you in our next conversation. And keep on growing. Get better, because we all get better when you get better.